All right, are we ready to get going?
Ready.
Light this candle.
Let's fire this thing up. All right, welcome to the Hammer Factor. My name is John Grace. I am the show producer, and I'm joined by my co-host, professional poker player, North Fork champion, and policy counsel for the Outdoor Alliance, Lewis Geltman. Are you there?
Hey, John.
Hey, Lewis. Welcome back to the show again.
Thanks.
Also, in studio, we have whitewater legend, co-owner of Immersion Research, John Weld. Are you there?
I'm here.
All right, here we are. We made it to episode 5, guys.
Who would have guessed? You know, if people could only hear the 15 or 20 minutes of conversation that goes on before the show starts, it could be, well...
It's hard to capture that magic once the recorder's running.
Yeah, they were a little more guarded, let's say.
when our careers are all ruined and we're banned from the internet, we're just going to throw it all out there. All right, well, let's get right into it. No recaps or anything from the last show. It was quite a doozy. If you didn't get a chance to listen to it, we had some good commentary and a custom rap from Rush Sturgis, as well as some other good topics. As always, if you like our show, please subscribe. That way we know people are listening and we can keep going forward. With no further ado, Lewis, what's going on with Outdoor Alliance these days?
Man, so I'm heading to DC tomorrow. I'm back there pretty often to go to meetings and lobby on public land stuff. And big thing I'm going back to talk about is this bill called Recreation Not Redtape that Senator Wyden introduced, and it's not the greatest name, but it does a lot of things like some permitting reforms for outfitter guides, kind of adds a recreation mission to some of the land management agencies that don't have one already. But the piece of it that we're really most excited about, it kind of relates back to the conversation we were having last week about forest planning, where I was kind of talking about how the forest planning process kind of queues up potential new wilderness designations and potential wild and scenic river designations. And if we can get this bill passed, it would do a similar thing for creating new national recreation areas. And it's a pretty exciting thing because, you know, for a long time, I think we've done a pretty good job, or we've created tools that do a good job for creating or protecting really pristine backcountry areas like wild and scenic rivers or like wilderness areas. But we don't really have tools right now to protect front country places that are often some of the most important for recreation. And so what happens, because those places aren't really suitable for wilderness designation, or, you know, it's not a river, you get multiple use management, which is kind of the default, and that leaves these places open to a lot of development pressure and pressure for logging and oil and gas development out west and things like that. And this would kind of queue up this process to look for those front country places that we could protect, and protect them in a way that kind of prioritizes recreation access. I don't know if you guys have been following kind of some of the controversy lately about mountain bikes in the wilderness. You guys familiar with that at all?
I'm not up to speed.
So a lot of people probably even know this, but mountain bikes are not allowed in wilderness areas. It's in the Wilderness Act that mechanized transportation is not permitted in wilderness areas. And there's sort of a lot of controversy about that because, you know, it's a pretty low impact form of travel, and we want to have mountain bikers able to advocate for protection of, you know, important places without having to, you know, basically kick themselves out when they put those protections on the landscape. So this would kind of create a new tool that would allow for protective management and still keep bikes in. So that's one of the kind of exciting things about this.
Super exciting. So this really needs to stand out to our mountain biking listeners here.
Yeah, it's Recreation Not Redtape is the name of the bill, from Senator Ron Wyden out here in Oregon. The House bill is from Blumenauer, who's also from Oregon. Probably not a ton for everyone out in the podcast sphere to do just yet, but stay tuned. It's exciting, and I think it'll be an exciting development for getting rad outdoors and protecting places we care about.
Well, I think we're up to like 70 listeners now, so we're going to be quite the force for making this happen.
Yeah. Maybe we can get Rush to write a rap about it for next week.
Why British Columbia? Why do you guys go to British Columbia to meet for this?
No, DC.
DC. I thought I just think BC.
Yeah, I think the Senate's moved to Canada. The House is soon following here.
I was all jealous of your trip, and then
Now you're not jealous anymore.
No, not at all.
Get some Great Falls laps in, I'm sure. Be good.
All right, and now on to our celebrity guest here on Hammer Factor episode 5. On the line we have original green racer and Liquidlogic boat designer Shane Benedict. How you doing?
Very good. What's happening, y'all? What's happening?
Oh man, we're just going through the motions here. We made it to episode 5, and everybody's still got their jobs. And
Congratulations!
We haven't offended too many people.
We're going to try today, though, for sure.
Perfect.
Well, Shane, what's going on in your world? Talk to us.
Designing boats, man. It's cool. It's fun. I'm doing a lot of boat design stuff, and I'm actually building a big tree house out in the woods. That's been taking up a lot of fun time lately. Power tools out in the woods is always fun, I think. That's about it.
Well, that's a pretty busy schedule. But I'm just going to get right into it. So, and I know that Lewis and John have got a lot of questions for you on this topic, but you called me up last week, said, hey, let's meet at the river. I got a little something special for you to paddle. And I got in a stinger that was vacuum formed. And I'm not a boat designer or boat builder, so I'll probably mess up some of the terminology here, but it was a boat. It was really stiff. It looked like a stinger. It was significantly lighter and stiffer, and the rocks didn't seem to penetrate it. And I will leave it right there and let John and Lewis fire off some questions at you, because I know that earlier they were talking about it.
Well, first of all, I think just for the listeners, we should make sure we're clear on, how boats are typically, whitewater boats are typically made, and how this boat's thermoformed. I think we're familiar with it, but other people may not. What's the deal there?
Well, typically the boats are made in a rotational mold, which is basically you have an aluminum mold, you pour plastic powder into it, and then that mold is rotated inside a hot oven, and the powder just rolls around in the mold, and you just keep it rolling so it creates a smooth thickness all the way around, pretty much, and that's about it for rotomolding. Vacuum forming, you actually have a sheet of plastic already. It's not a powder or anything. It's a sheet. And then you warm up that sheet and then lay it down over a form and actually draw a vacuum, suck the plastic down onto the shape to create the piece that you want. And in this case, it's 2 parts, and so we actually have to bond the 2 halves together. So you don't make the entire boat all at one time.
Right. I know with rotomolding, you can distribute the thickness somewhat throughout the length of the hull. Can you do that with thermoforming as well?
You can. There's different ways of they call it plug assist or assisting the way the boat is shaped as the plastic drops into the form. They can kind of push plastic a little bit in different ways. They also have you can specify the thickness of the sheet so that you get the thickness that you want in different places as well. Obviously, there's a little bit of stretch as you draw it down onto that mold. Right.
So, the big benefits are obviously weight and rigidity. Right.
Yeah.
When I think of a thermoform part, I think of something that's pretty, like as Lewis pointing out, Royal X.
Right.
I'm thinking a pretty rigid part. And you're seeing, like in a stinger, what's a rotomold stinger weigh versus a thermoform stinger?
We dropped about 6 pounds, 7 pounds, actually 7 pounds off of a normal stinger. for this vacuum form boat.
Right.
So it's 10%, a little better than 10% actually.
So, I mean, the question I'm dying to ask is, what's the catch? Because thermoforming's been around for a while, and it's obvious it's been used for boats as well. I mean, your sister company Hurricane uses them in sea kayaks.
Right.
I mean, why haven't people done this with whitewater until now?
Well, the hard part is bonding those two parts together and getting a really strong bond and getting a plastic that is up to the standard. I mean, just like for rotomolding, there's all different types of plastic. Like everything from what you build a garbage can out of to what you build a kayak out of. That's the highest, grade plastic pretty much you can use, is the stuff that we use making kayaks.
Is there just as a side, how much difference is like the polyethylene you use to rotomold Liquidlogic kayaks as opposed to like Dagger's plastic or Jackson's kayaks? I know in waterproof breathables there's a lot more similarities. There are differences. Is that the case with this polyethylene? Are you guys pretty much all using the same plastic?
No, there's definitely differences. We all use different stuff, and
I mean, could you clone Dagger's plastic if you wanted to, but you choose not to for performance reasons for your own?
Yeah, well, we could buy it. I mean, there are suppliers that everybody uses, so we could just go buy the same stuff. But
you choose. Obviously you're choosing to use your own because you feel like it's, for whatever reason, it's better than what they're using.
Yeah, I mean that's something that that we really like doing, is constantly testing plastic and trying to find the very best thing. I mean, that materials is the obvious place where all of this stuff can get better. It's, everybody's pushed their outfitting, everybody's constantly pushing the shapes, and everybody wants the materials, to get better. But it's crazy. As crazy as it sounds, is polyethylene is a really great material for whitewater kayaks, not just for its, durability and toughness, and its shapeability and moldability, but just the cost. There's materials that could do better, but the boat would cost, $5,000 or something. But the material is incredible for it because of its moldability and its toughness and that's the great thing about polyethylene. And then there's that. But the real difference that comes in the plastics is how you process them. So it's when you slightly undercook or overcook a boat, it's not nearly as strong. And so paying attention to the molding of a plastic boat is the number one thing.
I mean, that's actually interesting. There's a lot of parallels between that and fabric because, like I said, while there's differences in there's not much difference in the actual compounds, how it's put together makes all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there is subtle differences in the plastics, and because we're always pursuing that. But by far, the most important thing is the guys running the ovens and taking care.
I mean, I'm looking at two things you have to glue together, and we've done some adhesive works over the years with Rand skirts and whatnot. Adhesives are a pain, and I'm looking at Philip Curry, who's making Astral shoes, and I know he's had a real learning curve there as well. I'm thinking that has got to be a difficult part of this process, getting those two halves to stick together.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the make or break of the whole project, and it's. But the polyethylene is a nightmare to try to glue to, but this other plastic is not that difficult. We're finding that it's really, really durable. In fact, the boat I was paddling, I actually I broke a piece that was thin, like we were talking about how when it was molded, it stretched a little bit too much in this one area and had a little thin spot. Mm-hmm. And where it was glued at the seam, the material actually broke before the glued seam broke. So all this stuff, the plastic and the adhesives, we've actually had a lot of lab tests have been done on them to test them for their strength and shear strength and pull strength and blah, blah, all that abrasion resistance. And that all pointed to really, really good things. Obviously, most of us in kayaking don't trust a lot of that, and we want to go beat it to death. And we've got the green right there, which is notorious for breaking everything,
especially right now.
Yeah, at 5 inches, it's pretty brutal.
So to clarify for our viewers, this is a different plastic than what a traditional hurricane boat is made out of. It's not.
That's right.
It's not the same thing, correct?
No, totally different. Yeah, okay. Totally different plastic.
Okay, and so this is totally new plastic that is for the first time ever being put into this kind of whitewater environment, and of thermoform that you guys have ever experimented with this.
As far as I know, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so is it skins over a core kind of thing?
Nope. Straight sheet material.
And so it seems like the natural thing would be, if you found that this was working, to have like a 3-piece mold with kind of an overlap between the deck and the hull to facilitate gluing them together. Would that kind of be the vision?
Exactly. Yep. And that's one of the things, if this works, and we're just beginning to test this. If this works, that would be one of the biggest things to solve, is exactly how that joint works and how it's glued together. And, in theory, if you have your adhesives right, the adhesive and the bonding of those two pieces are stronger than the material itself if you get it right. So that's what we're shooting for.
Super cool, man. I feel like it's really exciting to hear about innovation and construction techniques. It seems like rotomolded polyethylene boats has been around since the 80s. And obviously the boats have gotten better, but it's not exactly like revolutionary change since the Dancer even. So it's cool to hear that you guys are working on some new stuff.
Is there a whole shape that you can make in thermoform that you can't do in polyethylene you're excited to try?
This is the first one we've done. Obviously, there's a lot of vacuum form boats out there. And they talk a lot about the edges maybe not being sharp enough to really create what might be a playboat edge. But I've seen a lot of edges on some of the vacuum form boats that look really good to me. It's whether or not this material lends itself to that. There's some variables there that we'd have to figure out. But the Stinger's got some tight things, in a cockpit rim and the way the recesses are built in there for the seat. We didn't change a single thing. The handles, for our security bar handles that we use, those little recesses all formed really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
So
that's really cool.
So why was it so? One thing, it was super stiff. Not having the weight on the ends of your boats made it a lot more responsive. Just its overall interaction with the water coming off of drops, it was just like 10% snappier, not just a little bit, like a lot snappier. But what was up with its abrasion resistance? Is all thermoform like that? There was no scratches in the boats at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just it's much more abrasion resistant. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the specifics of the plastic, to be honest. It's so new that I need to study on it more. Our partners, Hurricane, those guys were like, we found this material and this, and nobody's used it for this other stuff. And they, let's try it in a kayak. And they said specifically, let's try it. It's supposed to be the toughest stuff there is. So let's try to do it for a whitewater kayak.
Is it polyethylene?
What's that?
Is it polyethylene? Or something?
I'm gonna hold on to that, what type of plastic it is, for a little while right now. Sorry about that.
It's like Shanalethylene.
We are trying to come up with a name, so anything you got there is great.
How long do you have to test this before you could release it to market? And I guess, and part of the question would be, like, how long do you expect a boat to last? At what point would you say, yeah, this is going to work for majority of customers?
Well, I would love it if it lasted similar to what a poly boat lasts. That'd be awesome. And we have a lot of.
So is that like a Pat Keller unit? Like this will last like exactly 2.4 Pat Keller units,
you're actually going to laugh. You're going to crack up by this, but I actually used to send out surveys with people, and they'd fill out basically a paddling log, and they would apply a NAR factor. And so a 5-inch green run was a number 10 NAR factor. And so we just had lots of runs, and we'd get people down the river a whole bunch. And, and for the guys that could break a bowling ball, they're going to break a boat on the green in, somewhere between 80 and 120 runs. And then the normal Joes, all of us that are just out there, running along there and doing our thing, it'll last a little longer than that.
So who do you design boats for? Do you design them so they'll last for these guys ruining a boat in 100 runs, or do you just kind of marginalize them and say we're not going to make the regular customer pay for those extra features?
Oh my God!
Welcome to the Hammer Factor.
I have to answer the same question myself all the time.
Well, no, the whole theory of planned obsolescence, I kind of want to kick those people in the teeth a little bit. We want to design the boat to last as long as possible. I mean, I don't want to have a new boat, every half, 6 months or something like that. I want it to last as long as possible. There's no difference. We want it.
So, hey, I got a question for you since we're on this.
Hang on, let me talk about this boat a little bit more.
All right.
So, we've got this Stinger. It's lighter, it's faster, it's quicker. And if it proves that it doesn't break, if it proves that is it just going to be a Stinger? What are you going to do with this? Are you going to make all the boats out of it, or is this even been talked about? Are we still trying to figure out if it can hold up to the abuse?
I mean, you fantasize about all that stuff. You're like, God, we could make every boat out of this stuff if you make it work right. And but I also have to, I got to hold on a little bit because we got to make it work before I get too crazy. Crazy with stuff. It's got to last. It's got to the material's got to last. The way we manufacture it's got to last. You got to figure out how much this thing's going to cost. I mean, all that stuff is a part of it.
Well, do you think I'll have my thermoform wrap by December? Do you think that's? And can I get it? I need a party wrap too because.
Yeah, actually, everybody on the show is going to need a thermoform party wrap. So
thank you.
That's just kind of part
for Christmas.
Yeah, like Christmas. Anyway,
right,
talking it up.
Good on you for trying. Good, who knows how it's all going to pan out. There's so many complications and variables and things that happen that no one will ever know about unless you're, in the trenches doing it. But it was really fun to try it out. Thanks for inviting me, and good luck, man. I hope it all works out.
It's super fun, but it made it down one trip, So next
I'll take
trip
two.
to production.
It's cool.
We really might be dragging them out of the river next time, but we'll see how it goes.
It's cool though. It's like we've been kicking around this, sort of like innovation in boat design and construction versus racing topic for a while, and to me, this is like what you want to see, right? It's like you're not deciding that you figure, you're like, oh, I really want Pat to win the green race, so I'm going to spend $6,000 and build him the world's sickest Stinger. You're like, no, we're going to try this new innovative construction technique, and if this pans out, it's going to work for everybody, and it's going to be this thing that we're all going to benefit from. And there's kind of a little bit of motivation to do that because of the green race. So to me, it's like this is a cool example of like racing pushing innovation in a way that's hopefully going to benefit everyone eventually. It's cool to see that. It's not just like throwing money at the problem and creating some new expensive thing that's never going to like come to fruition for everybody else out there. It's like trying something new, and hopefully it pans out. So it's sick. I think, I'm glad you guys are doing that. It's rad.
It's fun. It's fun.
It is fun. What were you going to say, John, before I interrupted you a second ago? You were leading into
Yeah. So before the show, Shane, John mentioned you're coming on. We're talking about the boat, and this is something I've been thinking about for a little bit. Is whitewater boat designers in general. You're part of a pretty small crew of people. I mean, there's you, there's Robert Pearson, there's Snowy, David Knight, a handful of others. Who's going to replace you guys? I don't really see, and you guys all been in the business for a decade or more. I mean, I'd say 2 decades would probably be a more typical answer, average answer there.
Yeah.
Who's going to replace you guys? It seemed like when you guys started when you started designing boats, like a Reception or wherever you started, it was a little bit different atmosphere in the sense that, it seemed almost reasonable for an engineer to get into boat designing, someone with a degree or, had real experience in that, but it just seems far less likely now. I mean, do you see a crisis coming around the corner where we're not going to have the experience level that we have in boat design?
Oh my God, not a chance, man. I'm looking over my shoulder all the time. People want the job, It's
really,
I get asked all the time, how can I get on designing for Liquidlogic. How do I I'm an engineer. What program should I use to learn how to design boats in a computer?
Do they know what whitewater kayaking pays? Are they familiar with that?
They're young.
Yeah.
They're thinking it pays more than a raft guide. So,
but I mean, designing a whitewater boat takes more than just someone who can run a CAD program. I mean, they need to know. I mean, they need to have a bunch of experience in knowing, how a hull works through whitewater and what customers are expecting and what they're not expecting.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of those questions I get all the time is people asking, what are the things I should do to learn to become a designer, and it really is. It's not just the computer; it's learning the materials, it's learning all about the boats. And the most simple thing is to go paddle a bunch of different boats, look at them, and discuss them with people and talk about why that one feels different. And do you have a theory about why it feels different? And you're going to be totally wrong. And the first boat you design by yourself is going to suck. And it's just, but you got to keep pushing and keep going, and that's, you just got to keep, analyzing what you paddle, how it feels, and try to slowly evolve that your theories, and get it up to speed with what it feels like, when you make a new boat.
So I got a theory for you, Shane. Tell me what you think about this. It seems like, in the 80s when everybody was paddling composite boats, that level of technology, like to be able to build a boat in your garage, was accessible to everybody, right? Like John used to build boats. I used to build boats. And it created this this whole world of people out there who are able to build boats in their garage or build boats in their basement and experiment with new things and do it, relatively inexpensively. But that's not possible with polyethylene boats, right?
Right.
And so if you're trying to design a boat for running class 5, unless you're willing to spend a lot of money to create this design that ultimately you're probably not really going to be able to spend a lot of time running hard whitewater in, it's really hard to kind of have that sort of like widespread experimentation that kind of brought us innovations like squirt boating and just boats that you can pivot turn and just all the design progression that went on in the 80s and 90s. What do you think?
Just because there's so much upfront cost with the mold, you're saying, Lewis?
I mean, I remember Corin Addison waltzing into our boat shop with a planing hull slalom race boat made out of composite, And
that's like a $3,000 project, right? If you wanted to do it really cheaply to come up with a design like that.
Yeah,
but if you want to,
he was able to do that. I mean, he had the skills to do it.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a ton. There's a lot fewer people, that have access to that. But what's kind of crazy is you see people using different avenues. I've seen now a couple of guys that are doing incredible jobs welding boats together and welding pieces and parts of boats together. As far as a budget way to design a new boat, I mean, there's some incredible boats. I'm trying to remember the guy that I've seen who's got the seams are absolutely perfect in the welds, and he designs totally new designs. It's crazy. They're beautiful.
How about 3D printing? Are you worried that in 10 years 3D printing is going to put boat companies out of business because you can just...
I'll send you a file of the party wrap soon.
Thank you. It'll be like Napster except for boat design.
No, I think you're totally right, Lewis. I mean, that having all those people that have it's that basic hands-on thing. As kids, we all spent more time out in the woods. We learned how to tie knots. And you dabbled in the garage. And bang nails into wood. And I don't know how much of that happens compared to how much it happened back then. It's that basic sort of building skill and knowledge that I think a lot of us had from a very young age, that hands-on knowledge is a lot more rare in general.
What about you, Weld? Are people beating down your door to build the next splash jacket? What's going on in the sewing world?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a parallel in boats, and Shane could certainly illuminate this, but I think that the obstacle people face now is we started IR in 97, right? And so at that time, the sophistication of paddling gear was pretty low. I mean, people weren't expecting a whole lot out of their paddling gear. And you could start a gear company in your garage with a home sewing machine and without too much resources, make something was pretty competitive for the market. But nowadays, what people expect out of like a dry suit in terms of sophistication, in terms of the fabric and the taping and the gaskets and the trims, the zippers, all these things, it requires a huge investment to even make a single product. I mean, just if you were to start a company nowadays making a dry suit, and if you were to compete with what's on the market now, you would need to have $150,000 at your disposal. And there's an excellent chance that the first 5 years you make a dry suit, they'd be garbage. You know, they would be nowhere close to the standards of what's out there. Cool. And there's not many people with that kind of money who are looking at whitewater thinking, yeah, that's what I'm going to do with this money. You know?
Yeah.
You got to love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's protected. It's protected. It's a lot. You know, big companies like Patagonia and Helly Hansen and North Face, and they take a look at whitewater and kind of see the same problem. You know, they're just like, there's just no way we're going to pull this off, and it's a huge amount of resources, and it's going to be a lot of warranties and headaches before we get it right. So I don't know if it's sort of like the homegrown talent that we're missing, but from a financial standpoint, it's a much different situation than it was 20 years ago. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Shane, you got a second to stick around and go through some viewer mail real quick?
Heck yeah. Let's do it.
All right. Which one should we pick? So we're getting some viewer mail. We love viewer mail. If you're listening, this input really stirs the pot. And, you know, Weld and myself and Lewis, we're about out of ideas. So
those wells run dry.
five episodes deep. We're done.
I think we can start talking about the BRAP again next episode. People have forgotten.
Oh, man.
We could go back to the thermoform BRAP. So here we got one from Michael Gallimore. And this one can come back. Lewis, you may be able to help us a little bit with this one. He says, in your opinion, what is the impact of climate change, droughts, and weak economic conditions been on the popularity of the sport? And has this led to the masses paddling lakes and ponds in $300 boats from Dick's and less in $1,000 kayaks on the rivers? Anyone?
Well, I mean, I don't know, Shane. We sold a lot less gear in California in the past 5 years. I mean, that used to be kind of a market for us, and not so much.
Yeah. I mean, it's down quite a bit out west for sure.
Well,
but in the Southeast, I feel like if the weather's good, people get out, and it's only a good thing. I mean, we talk about it all the time, how if you get a good early spring, the season starts with a jump, and you're off to the races. You know, the weather, I think, impacts our season heavily.
I don't think there's a correlation. What's that?
So you guys are like farmers.
That's right.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a correlation between $300 boats from Dick's and, you know, the kayaks in the rivers. I mean, from what I can see now, I mean, from the East Coast, I mean, it seems like whitewater is gaining some steam. Or
well, I'll say
I don't know. That's not a scientific study, but I just look at the put in the upper yoke and the top yoke and you know, the lower yoke on a weekend, and it is booming.
Well, yeah. I mean, there were 103 racers on the Russell Fork. I don't know how many people I saw coming down the upper, the class 2-3 section up above it, and all the parking lots were full. And I mean, it was a rad scene. So, you know, I don't know. I think more the question here with this is, are the $300 boats, are they good or bad for the market? There's two arguments. One, yeah, people got their boat, they're not going to buy a higher end product, but there's also, I got this boat and I'd really like one that performed a lot better. Yeah. So, you know.
I mean, I think I wish they bought my $700 boat instead of that $300 boat. But I think they're a good thing. I mean, it makes them affordable. It makes them so people can reach out to them. The problem is that they give some people a bad experience. You know, as they get in that thing, and a lot of them are undersized. And you know, big dude gets in that little boat, swims down the river, and it's over. You know, they're not gonna enjoy that. I mean, Grace, you've probably seen this as well, but like the French Broad is bonkers with people paddling boats of all time. I mean, it is crazy.
Oh yeah.
Down through Asheville, on a weekend, you see hundreds of paddlers out on the easy section, and it's in all different types of boats. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you can sit at New Belgium and watch 1,000 people take out.
Yeah,
over a couple beers. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I certainly think that the economy has more to do with it than climate change, because I'm not even sure climate change is real. All right, let's do one.
An awkward silence there.
I was waiting for somebody to laugh at me there.
I was like, "Oh shit!"
Okay, now one more. Now I got to edit that out, Weld. All right. Let's get into our favorite and final part of the show. Rants and Raves. Well,
I thought you do your green race plug here.
I don't have to plug the green race. The whole next show is going to be about the green race. We're going to bring all the champions on, and everybody just needs to understand that all of the stories and struggles of life all play out on November 5th, and it is truly going to be a sight to behold.
Yeah,
and there's going to be water in the river, so
that's true.
And why do you put little like frowny faces next to in the show notes when I talk about the green race? Well, let's get to the bottom of this.
I think if you live in the
Brevard, Hendersonville,
Asheville Triangle, the green race is a very big deal. But you radiate outside of that little circle, it doesn't quite.
Do you know there's like a dozen countries that come out to this thing?
What did you say if someone uses the green as their credentials and they show up in the little white? What's the general reaction?
Look, this is what it is. This is what it is. Well, you're so stuck in paddling upriver on the loop that you just can't see past anything else, man. Just lap after lap on the loop. Loop love. On a big day, go to the upper yacht. All right, on to our favorite
Virginia Class 5 there, Upper Yacht.
On to our favorite section of the show, Rants and Raves. John, start us out with a rant. What do you got?
Okay, here's my rant. You ready? I gotta lay down the law a little bit here. You have a crew of paddlers, your crew. Your 4 or 5 people you paddle with. You go to run. You're going to meet to run a Class 5 river, and unannounced, unexpectedly, one of the guys brings a friend. For the record, not cool, right? Are we in agreement here?
I think there's a lot of times that it can definitely change the dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone listening out there, don't do it. Just show up. If you got invited, show up. Don't bring the friend.
Do you have
the friend always around here? The friend seems to be from Baltimore. The friend from Baltimore. No offense to Baltimore, but that's how it goes down. And then there's a hike or something. Grace, you had a story about this too.
Oh God, yeah, I got several stories, but I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But I do know that oftentimes there's the extra person, and this is the problem. If you're going to take care of your extra person that you bring, that's one thing. But if you bring your friend and you expect the whole group to take care of your friend, that's another thing. So,
but if the friend gets hurt and suddenly you're hiking out, suddenly everyone's involved, whether they want to be or not, because you're not just going to abandon somebody with a dislocated shoulder or whatever.
Well, speak for yourself, man. Anyway, don't bring your unknown friend on the river, right. John Weld rant.
Thank you.
I'll give that a half step less bad than just hanging out at the takeout, hoping to barnacle onto someone.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm with you, Weld.
And don't barnacle as well, Lewis adds on. All right, Rave. Lewis Geltman.
Okay, this rave prompted by John Weld. I gave him this book recommendation a while ago. Apparently, he liked it. Barbarian Days by William Finnegan. It's kind of like a memoir of his life as a surfer. And Finnegan is he's a New Yorker writer, just like super, super good writer. I think he just won the Pulitzer, is that right, for Barbarian Days?
That's right.
But just like kind of like tracing the arc of his involvement with surfing through his whole life, like definitely somebody who is really all in, feral surfer in his 20s, kind of found writing, went on to become super accomplished professionally, but just sort of talking about growing old with the sport, discovering, I think, was he like one of the first like half dozen people to surf Tabarua, he talks about in the book. But just like incredibly well written for kind of the outdoor genre, really introspective, super, super good book. Highly recommended.
I thought there was a lot of parallels with surfing and kayaking for obvious reasons, but I thought what he was talking about translated so well to someone who could have kayaked during the same era.
Totally. Just somebody who's really, really passionately involved in the sport in a way that has nothing to do with like getting attention from anyone else ever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It reminded me of someone like these guys running the Gully for the first time in the 60s. That story would have fit right into this book.
Barbarian Days. We'll put that in the show notes for everyone to check out.
Yeah, check it out. Really good book.
Shane, you got a Rant and Rave, bonus edition Rant and Rave here you want to throw on the mix?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do. I on the worldwide interwebs, I ran across a article by Doug Ammons, and it had a very sensational title that was not very. I didn't really like the title of the article, but basically the content was that our default setting for kayakers in general is gung ho, go bigger, push yourself, run stuff bigger, and all that kind of stuff. And it brought up a little rant in me in that, and I think it's something I have grown out of. When I was a younger paddler, I was always pushing, and even as a teacher, I was pushing people to try harder stuff and run harder rapids and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to thinking of the style, thinking of kayaking. Just go kayaking. You don't have to worry about running bigger stuff. We're doing harder things. What it brought up in me is that all too often we settle on that. The cliches is what Doug said of gung ho, go for it, go bigger, go home. And he put it in, one of the sentences he said was, if you have a paddle in your hands and you're in your boat, once you push off into the river, you are a real paddler, and that we're all paddlers. And there is no wrong way to be a kayaker, and there is no right way to be a kayaker. We all, the last thing I wrote something about it. There is no right or wrong way to negotiate the river other than to relish, appreciate, and love it.
I would say if you bring your friend from Baltimore, you've done something wrong.
We are going to end the show with that one. Very good, Shane. That was super good. Is there a reference? Will you email me over a reference to that link so I can put it in the show notes for our viewers?
Yep, will do.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show and sharing the new material testing that's going on, Shane. Appreciate that. I'm sure people will get a big kick out of that one.
Good fun. Thanks for having me.
Party Brap, thermoform. I won't really, honestly, legitimately need it till March.
Okay, cool.
So don't rush.
My armpits are sweating.
And then, hey, one last question: do I get an Adachi or a Shogun? Quickly.
Go with the Adachi.
Should I get a
100%?
Adachi.
No question.
No question.
Should I be looking at another brand here? Should I look like a Lendl or something? Or am I missing something here?
You can do whatever you want, but I'm just telling you, the Adachi is a whole nother level of paddle.
Shane, you use this?
Power. I've used it just a little bit, but man, power.
Yeah. Bend shaft or straight shaft?
Jeez. Don't straight shaft.
That's a
straight
whole
shaft.
Just go straight.
That's a whole show right there, Weld. You just opened up a can of worms, son. Just get yourself a 202, 45 degree, or 60 degree if it makes you feel more secure.
45 is fine.
All right.
No, I can do 45. 60 would be nice. Oh, God.
All right, boys. I think I'm going to cut it right there.
All right. Thanks, Shane.
Yep.
Yeah, good chatting, fellas.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye.